The crisp Pacific Northwest air filled my lungs as I stepped out of the car, the crunch of gravel under my feet grounding me in the moment. The cabin stood before us, nestled among towering evergreens, their needles glistening with the remnants of a recent rain. This was supposed to be my sanctuary, a place to heal and reset after the whirlwind of my divorce. Lily, my childhood friend, had suggested the trip, insisting that a week in the woods with her and a few mutual friends was just what I needed. I wanted to believe her, to trust that this escape would mend the frayed edges of my heart. As we unloaded our bags, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been gnawing at me since we left Seattle. Lily's laughter echoed through the trees, a sound that once brought comfort but now felt jarring. I glanced at her blonde hair shimmering in the dappled sunlight, and wondered if she noticed the tension in my shoulders, the forced smile on my lips. The cabin was more rustic than I had imagined, with worn wooden floors and a stone fireplace that dominated the living room. The scent of pine and earth filled the air, a stark contrast to the sterile apartment I had been calling home. I claimed a bedroom on the second floor, the one with a view of the lake, and began to unpack my things. As I hung my clothes in the closet, I noticed that my phone had no signal. A flicker of panic rose in my chest, but I pushed it down, reminding myself that this was supposed to be a technology detox, a chance to disconnect from the world and reconnect with myself. That first night, we gathered around the fireplace, the flames casting shadows on the walls as we shared stories and laughter. I tried to join in, to lose myself in the moment, but something felt off. Lily and the others seemed to be sharing inside jokes, their eyes flickering with a secret language that I couldn't decipher. I found myself retreating into silence, my gaze fixed on the dancing flames as I sipped my wine. The next morning, I woke to the sound of rain pattering against the window. I reached for my phone, a habit born of years of checking emails and social media first thing in the morning. But the screen remained blank, the lack of signal a stark reminder of my disconnection from the world. I dressed quickly, the chill of the cabin seeping into my bones, and made my way downstairs. The others were already gathered in the kitchen, their voices a low murmur as they sipped coffee and planned the day's activities. I poured myself a cup, the warmth seeping into my hands as I listened to their conversation. They were talking about a hike, a trail that led to a hidden waterfall deep in the woods. I felt a spark of excitement at the thought of exploring the wilderness, of losing myself in the beauty of nature. But as the day wore on, my unease grew. We set out on the hike, the path winding through dense forest and across babbling streams. I struggled to keep up, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I navigated the uneven terrain. Lily and the others seemed to glide effortlessly ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees as they left me behind. I paused to catch my breath, leaning against a tree as I wiped the sweat from my brow. As I looked up, I realized that I was alone. The others had disappeared from view, their voices fading into the distance. Panic rose in my chest as I called out their names, my voice echoing through the empty woods. But there was no response, only the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird. I retraced my steps, my heart pounding in my chest as I made my way back to the cabin. The rain had picked up, the drops pelting my skin as I stumbled through the mud. As I approached the cabin, I saw that the cars were gone, the gravel driveway empty save for the puddles that reflected the gray sky. I rushed inside, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I searched for any sign of the others. But the cabin was empty, the only sound the ticking of the clock in the living room. I checked my phone again, desperation clawing at my throat as I willed the signal to appear. But the screen remained blank, a mocking reminder of my isolation. As I stood there, the reality of my situation began to sink in. I had been left behind, abandoned in the woods with no way to contact the outside world. I thought of Lily, of her laughter and her promises of healing, and felt a surge of anger and betrayal. How could she do this to me? How could she leave me here, alone and vulnerable, after everything I had been through? I spent the rest of the day in a daze, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of what had happened. I searched the cabin for any clues, any hint of why they had left me behind, but all I found were empty rooms and echoing silence. As night fell, I huddled under the blankets, the sound of the rain against the window a lonely serenade as I drifted into a fitful sleep. The next morning, I woke with a newfound determination. I couldn't stay here, waiting for them to return, hoping for an explanation that might never come. I had to take action to find a way out of this situation and reclaim my power. I searched the cabin for a map, anything that could guide me to the nearest town. In the back of a closet, I found a faded topographical map, the creases worn from years of use. I traced the route with my finger, committing the turns and landmarks to memory as I prepared for the journey ahead. As I stepped out of the cabin, the weight of my backpack a comforting presence on my shoulders, I took a deep breath, the scent of pine and rain filling my lungs. I didn't know what lay ahead, what challenges I would face as I made my way through the wilderness, but I knew that I couldn't stay here, a prisoner of my own fear and uncertainty. I had to keep moving to find my way back to the world and the truth that awaited me. The journey was treacherous, the path winding through dense forests and across rocky terrain. I stumbled and fell, my knees scraped and bruised as I navigated the uneven ground. But I kept going, driven by a fierce determination to survive, to prove to myself and to them that I was stronger than they thought. As I walked, I thought of Lily, of our shared history and the bond that I had believed was unbreakable. I thought of the laughter and the secrets, the promises and the dreams that we had shared. And I wondered how it had come to this, how our friendship had unraveled into this web of betrayal and deceit. The answers I knew lay ahead in the truth that awaited me at the end of this journey. And so I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, my heart heavy with the weight of my thoughts as I made my way through the wilderness toward the light that beckoned me home. The rain had finally subsided, leaving the forest damp and eerily quiet. Each step I took echoed with the weight of my thoughts, the crunch underfoot and twigs underfoot, a stark reminder of my solitude. The map I had found in the cabin was my lifeline, guiding me through the dense wilderness toward the promise of civilization. I clung to it, tracing the path with my finger, willing myself to keep moving forward. As I walked, memories of Lily flooded my mind. We had been inseparable as children, our bond forged through shared secrets and dreams. But as we grew older, cracks began to form in our friendship. I had always attributed them to the natural ebb and flow of life, the inevitable growing apart that comes with adulthood. But now, as I retraced the steps of our shared history, I saw the patterns of manipulation and control that had been woven into the fabric of our relationship. I remembered the time in college when Lily had convinced me to drop a class because it didn't fit her schedule, even though it was a requirement for my major, or the way she had subtly undermined my relationships, planting seeds of doubt that blossomed into full-blown insecurities. And then there was Jason, my ex-husband, who had been her friend first. I had always wondered if their bond had played a role in the demise of my marriage, if Lily's influence had somehow poisoned the well of our love. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, and I quickened my pace, driven by a newfound urgency to uncover the truth. The path ahead was steep and treacherous, but I navigated it with a fierce determination fueled by the fire of betrayal that burned within me. As the day wore on, the landscape began to change. The dense forest gave way to a clearing, and in the distance I saw the faint outline of a structure. It was an old, abandoned cabin, its roof sagging under the weight of time and neglect. I approached it cautiously, the creak of the wooden steps echoing through the silence as I climbed onto the porch. The door was unlocked and I pushed it open, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of old wood. I explored the cabin, my footsteps echoing through the empty rooms as I searched for any signs of life. In the back of a closet, I found a hidden compartment, its door slightly ajar. Inside was a collection of letters and documents, their edges yellowed with age. I sat down on the floor, the dust settling around me as I began to read. The letters were correspondence between Lily's family and various acquaintances, their contents revealing a history of manipulation and deceit that spanned generations. There were references to business deals gone sour, friendships severed, and reputations ruined, all orchestrated with a cold calculation that sent a chill down my spine. As I delved deeper into the documents, I found emails printed on faded paper, their contents detailing a plan to undermine my career and personal life. The names were redacted, but the intent was clear. Someone had been working behind the scenes to sabotage my relationships and professional opportunities, all while maintaining the facade of friendship. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal as I realized the extent of the deception. Lily had not only abandoned me in the woods, but had been actively working to destroy my life. The weight of the revelation was crushing, and I sat there for a long time, the letters scattered around me as I grappled with the truth. As night fell, I huddled in a corner of the cabin, the sound of the wind howling through the trees, a haunting melody that echoed the turmoil within me. I thought of Jason, of the way our marriage had unraveled, and wondered if he had been a part of the plan all along. The thought was too painful to bear, and I pushed it away, focusing instead on the task at hand. I had to keep moving to find my way back to the world and expose the truth. I couldn't let them win, couldn't let them destroy me without a fight. And so, with a heavy heart, I gathered the letters and documents, tucking them safely into my backpack as I prepared to face the journey ahead. The next morning, I set out with a renewed sense of purpose, the path before me clear and unyielding. I walked for hours, the sun beating down on my back as I navigated the rugged terrain. The map had led me to a fork in the road, and I stood there for a moment, uncertain of which way to turn. And then, like a beacon in the wilderness, I heard the distant sound of a car engine. I followed it, my heart pounding in my chest as I emerged from the woods onto a paved road. In the distance, I saw a vehicle approaching, its headlights cutting through the early morning mist. I waved my arms, desperation clawing at my throat as I willed the driver to see me. The car slowed to a stop, and a man rolled down the window, his eyes filled with concern as he took in my disheveled appearance. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice warm and reassuring. I nodded, relief washing over me as I realized that I was no longer alone. "I need help," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. "I need to get to the nearest town." The man nodded, his expression sympathetic as he unlocked the door. "Get in," he said. "I'll take you there." As we drove, I looked out the window, the landscape blurring into a kaleidoscope of green and gold. I thought of the journey ahead, of the battles that lay before me as I fought to reclaim my life and expose the truth. But for the first time since I had been abandoned in the woods, I felt a glimmer of hope, a spark of determination that burned bright and fierce within me. I would not be silenced, would not be erased. I would fight back and I would win. And as the town came into view, its buildings rising like sentinels in the distance, I knew that my journey was far from over. But I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to reclaim my voice and my power, ready to rise from the ashes of betrayal and forge a new path forward. The town was a bustling hub of activity, a stark contrast to the isolation of the woods. I stepped out of the car, the noise and energy of the streets enveloping me as I took in the sights and sounds of civilization. The man who had given me a ride offered a kind smile and a nod before driving away, leaving me to navigate this new landscape on my own. My first stop was the local police station, a modest brick building nestled between a coffee shop and a hardware store. I pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped inside, the cool air a welcome relief from the warmth of the day. The officer at the front desk looked up as I approached, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern as he took in my disheveled appearance. "I need to report a crime," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. I explained my situation, the words tumbling out in a rush as I recounted the betrayal and abandonment, the evidence I had uncovered in the old cabin. The officer listened intently, his expression growing more serious with each passing moment. He assured me that they would investigate the matter, but I knew that the wheels of justice turned slowly. I couldn't wait for the system to catch up. I had to take matters into my own hands. I thanked the officer and left the station, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. I found a quiet cafe tucked away on a side street, the scent of freshly brewed coffee and pastries wafting through the air as I stepped inside. I ordered a lat and found a seat in the corner, pulling out my laptop and connecting to the Wi-Fi. It was time to fight back, to use the tools at my disposal to expose the truth and reclaim my life. I reached out to Alex, an old friend from college who had made a name for himself as a tech-savvy journalist. He was known for his investigative skills and his ability to uncover the stories that lurked beneath the surface. I sent him a message explaining my situation and asking for his help. His response was almost immediate, a flurry of questions and assurances that he was on the case. Together, we began to dig, following the digital trail that Lily and the others had left behind. We uncovered fake social media posts, manipulated emails, and even a series of text messages that painted a picture of a woman on the edge, a narrative designed to discredit me and justify their actions. The extent of the deception was staggering, and I felt a mix of anger and determination as we pieced together the puzzle. As the days turned into weeks, I found solace in the rhythm of my new life. I rented a small apartment above a bookstore, the scent of old books and fresh coffee a comforting reminder of simpler times. I spent my days working remotely, using my skills as a graphic designer to support local businesses and entrepreneurs. And in the evenings, I continued my investigation, fueled by a fierce desire to expose the truth and clear my name. One day, as I was scrolling through my social media feed, I came across a post that sent a chill down my spine. It was a photo of me taken during the trip to the cabin, my face streaked with tears and my eyes filled with despair. The caption read, "Sometimes you just can't save people from themselves. Mental health awareness prayers needed." The post had been shared by one of Lily's friends, and the comments were a mix of concern and condemnation, a chorus of voices that echoed the narrative they had crafted. I felt a surge of anger as I read the words, the injustice of it all threatening to consume me. But I pushed it down, channeling my energy into action. I screenshotted the post and sent it to Alex, along with the message that read, "It's time to set the record straight." Together, we crafted a response, a carefully worded rebuttal that exposed the lies and manipulation that had been woven into the fabric of my story. We posted it on my social media accounts, along with the evidence we had uncovered, and watched as the truth began to spread like wildfire. The backlash was swift and fierce, a tidal wave of outrage and support that swept through the digital landscape. Friends and strangers alike rallied to my side, their voices a chorus of solidarity that drowned out the whispers of doubt and deceit. Lily and the others were forced to confront the consequences of their actions, their carefully crafted narrative unraveling before their eyes. But I knew that the battle was far from over. I had to confront Lily, to look her in the eye and demand the truth, to understand the depths of her betrayal and the motives behind her actions. I braced myself for the inevitable showdown, steeling myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. I found Lily at a cafe in Seattle, her eyes widening in surprise as I approached her table. She looked different, her once vibrant energy replaced by a palpable tension, a wariness that hung in the air like a thick fog. I sat down across from her, my gaze steady as I met her eyes. "Why?" I asked, the question hanging in the air between us like a challenge. Lily sighed, her shoulders slumping as she leaned back in her chair. "It's complicated," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Try me," I replied, my tone firm and unyielding. And so she began to speak, her words a tangled web of excuses and justifications, a tapestry of betrayal and deceit that stretched back further than I had imagined. She spoke of jealousy and insecurity, of a desire to control and manipulate, to bend the world to her will. She spoke of Jason, of the role he had played in the demise of my marriage, of the ways in which he had been complicit in her schemes. As I listened, I felt a mix of anger and sadness, a profound sense of loss for the friendship that had once meant so much to me. But I also felt the sense of closure, a knowledge that I had finally uncovered the truth, that I had exposed the lies and reclaimed my power. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor as I looked down at Lily, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and defiance. "I forgive you," I said, the words a balm to the wounds that had festered within me for so long. "But I will never forget." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving Lily and the ghosts of our shared past behind. I stepped out into the sunlight, the weight of the world lifted from my shoulders, and began the journey of rebuilding my life, one step at a time. The sun was just beginning to rise as I stepped out of my apartment, the cool morning air a refreshing contrast to the warmth of my cozy home. The town had become a sanctuary for me, a place where I could heal and grow, away from the shadows of betrayal and deceit. I walked down the familiar streets, the scent of fresh bread and blooming flowers filling the air as I made my way to the local bakery. The bell above the door chimed softly as I entered, the comforting aroma of coffee and pastries enveloping me like a warm embrace. Behind the counter, Mia, the local artist who had become a mentor and friend, greeted me with a smile. Her eyes held a wisdom that came from years of experience and a deep understanding of the human spirit. "Good morning, Emma," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "How are you today?" I returned her smile, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "I'm good, Mia, really good." And I meant it. The past few months had been a journey of self-discovery and healing, a time of rebuilding and reclaiming my identity. I had thrown myself into my work, using my skills as a graphic designer to support local businesses and entrepreneurs. The community had embraced me, their support and encouragement a constant reminder of the power of kindness and connection. As I sipped my coffee and chatted with Mia, I reflected on the path that had led me here. The betrayal, the awakening, the reclamation, each step had been a painful yet necessary part of my journey. I had confronted the darkness within myself and emerged stronger, more resilient, and more true to who I was meant to be. Later that day, I found myself sitting in the park, the sun warming my skin as I watched children play and laughter fill the air. I thought of Lily and the others, of the pain they had caused and the lessons they had taught me. I no longer felt anger or bitterness. Instead, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the strength and wisdom their actions had forced me to find within myself. I pulled out my phone and opened my email, my fingers hovering over the keyboard as I composed a message to Jason. It was time to seek closure, to forgive and let go of the past. I wrote about my journey, about the pain and the healing, about the person I had become. I thanked him for the role he had played in my life, for the lessons he had taught me, and for the strength I had found in forgiveness. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a burden released into the universe. I was free, free from the chains of the past, free to embrace the future with open arms and an open heart. The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. My life in the small town blossomed like a flower in the sun, each petal a testament to the beauty and resilience of the human spirit. I continued to work remotely, my designs and illustrations a reflection of the joy and passion that filled my soul. I also began contributing to a local blog, sharing my story and the stories of others who had found healing and transformation in the face of adversity. One evening, as I sat in my cozy apartment, the soft glow of a lamp casting shadows on the walls, I received an email that would change the course of my life once again. It was from a publishing house expressing interest in turning my blog posts into a book. They had been moved by my story, by the raw honesty and emotional depth that resonated with so many readers. I was overwhelmed with gratitude and excitement, the possibility of sharing my journey with a wider audience, a dream come true. I spent the following months pouring my heart and soul into the manuscript, each word a testament to the power of resilience, forgiveness, and self discovery. As the book took shape, so did my life. I found love in the most unexpected of places, in the gentle smile of a local bookseller named Ethan. Our shared passion for literature and storytelling brought us together, and our bond deepened with each passing day. He became my rock, my confidant, my partner in every sense of the word. The day my book was published was a day of celebration and reflection. I stood in the local bookstore, surrounded by friends and loved ones, as I held the physical manifestation of my journey in my hands. The cover, a beautiful illustration of a phoenix rising from the ashes, was a symbol of my own rebirth, my own transformation from the flames of betrayal and deceit. As I looked out at the sea of faces, I saw Mia, her eyes filled with pride and love. I saw Ethan, his smile a beacon of support and encouragement, and I saw myself reflected in the eyes of those who had walked this path with me, who had held my hand and lifted me up when I needed it the most. In that moment, I knew that I had found my purpose, my passion, my place in the world. I had risen from the ashes of betrayal and emerged stronger, wiser, and more true to myself than I had ever been before. And as I stepped into the future, I did so with a heart full of gratitude, a soul full of courage, and a spirit that could never be broken. The journey had been long and arduous, filled with pain and heartache, but it had led me here to this moment of triumph and transformation. And as I looked out at the world, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be, that I had become exactly who I was meant to be. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.